Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're tackling a big project on our 911, and that is a full brake job. So we're gonna do front and rear, pads, rotors, caliper bolts, a brake bleed, the whole 9 yards. We're gonna start off by showing you all the parts that we have, and then we're gonna jump right in. Alright guys, so before we get started, let's take a look at the parts that we're going to be installing. So first of all, I purchased all of these from pelicanparts.com. I'm going to link all of the parts in the description below. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, Pelican sells parts that are OE supplier parts. So you can get things like Sebro rotors or Textar pads, which are the OE supplier for Porsche, without paying for the Porsche name on the part. And two, they offer a lifetime replacement guarantee on all of their parts. So if I wear out these brake rotors or if I wear out these brake pads, I can send them back and get another set for free. So it's a one-time purchase for the lifetime of the vehicle. So just to take a look at what we have here today, so we have brake fluid. So we're going to be doing a brake fluid flush as well. We have Textar brake pads, front and rear. We have all of the clips that we need front and rear, new wear sensors, new caliper bolts, new driving pins for the center lock wheels, and then of course our new brake rotors. And we'll take a look at all of these in detail as we get them installed on the car. Okay, so we're going to start by removing the wheel, and the first step is to remove the center cap. There is a little tool in the front of the car. It's located inside of the center lock socket. And this little tool allows you to pry off the center cap. So you just insert the little metal part here. There's a little opening where you insert it, and then you pry straight out, and you can get the center cap off. Now we're ready to install our center lock socket. So here's a look at the center lock socket, also located in the front of the car. So this simply slides onto the nut, just like any socket would. It's 3/4 inch drive, and we've got a really long breaker bar to break this loose because these wheels are torqued on very, very tight, so you're going to need a lot of leverage to get them loose. So now that we've got the center lock nut loosened, I'm just going to finish it off by hand. Okay, so now I'm going to carefully lift the wheel off. I don't want to bang into the brakes, so I'm just going to get my arms under it and lift it straight off. All right, so the next step in removing the brakes is to unplug this wear sensor. So I'm going to do that by inserting a screwdriver, just a flat blade screwdriver, right here into the release. Give it a little twist, and then we should be able to just wiggle this plug out. There we go. There we go. So by twisting it, it releases that clip. Okay, so with the wear sensors unplugged, I'm going to go ahead and pop it out of the cable holder there. Now, technically, you should be able to pull these wear sensors out with maybe a pair of needle nose pliers. We are going to be replacing these, and we are right down to the wear sensors anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull on the wire. Don't ever do this if you want to reuse them. You can see it broke the wire, and we'll do the same thing on this side. Okay, so next up, we're going to remove the brake caliper. There are two large caliper bolts, one at the top, one down here at the bottom. They're both T55, so I'm going to go ahead and break those loose. There's one bolt. And we will be replacing these bolts, as it is recommended to replace them. And there's the second bolt. And now we should be able to just lift the caliper off. There's a pretty good ridge on these rotors. makes it a little bit challenging here. There we go. Starting to come now. There. Okay, so with the brake caliper off, I'm simply going to set it up here on top of our suspension. I've got a nice towel up here so nothing gets scratched up, but you never want to leave it hanging from the wire itself. So just setting it up here, that'll be a good place to work on things like removing the rotor and installing our new brake pads. Here is a look at the underside of the caliper. We can see both of our brake pads. Right away you can see that my brake pad material is actually a bit thinner than the backing plate, and that's always a good sign that it's time to replace your brake pads. I don't know if you guys can see it in the video, but you can see a lot of grooves and stuff in this brake pad as well. So the rotor is getting very, very worn. There's a huge lip on the rotor, so definitely time for a brake job on this car. So to remove the brake pads, since we already pulled out those wear sensors, all we need to do is push them in towards the center of the caliper. So the top brake pad I'll push down, the bottom brake pad I'll push up. You're just trying to get it up off of these pins. There's a spring clip in the back that's going to pop it out as soon as it clears these pins. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. There's one. And interestingly, I don't know if you guys can see this on the video, you can actually see this is a Textar brake pad. It's the same brand that we actually purchased. And I believe these are the OEM pads. And we'll pop out the bottom pad here. There you go. So both pads are out. Next up, I want to push these pistons in. There's no way that our new brake pads are going to go in here and clear the new brake rotor, because the new pads are much, much thicker than those old pads. So we need to push our pistons back into the caliper itself. All right, so there are a variety of different tools that you can use to push these brake pistons back in. I've got a little ratcheting tool here, so it's got two backing plates on it. So we're just going to slide this into the brake caliper. There we go. I should also say that I have taken the cap off of the brake master cylinder, and I've also extracted some of the fluid out so that we don't overflow the brake master cylinder, because as we push these pistons in, it's going to push brake fluid back into that master cylinder. So just like that, we just ratchet back and forth. So there we go, pistons fully retracted back into the caliper. Next up, we're going to remove the spring clip. To remove this brake spring clip, I'm just going to use a regular set of channel locks. I'm going to grab it right here at the central part. Just give it a little squeeze. There you go. Okay, we've got a brand new spring clip ready to go back in. And again, I'm going to link all of these part numbers in the description below. So we'll stick this in, holding it here with my channel locks. I'll give it a squeeze, and I should be able to push it in. Here we go. All there is to it. Okay, so before I put the new pads in, I'm going to use a little bit of this high temp caliper grease. And I'm going to put a little bit of grease on each of these pins where the pads slide. There we go. By the way, just in case you're wondering, how thin really were those pads? Here's the side-by-side with the new pad. All right, so here is a look at the new brake pads ready to go in. I did put a little bit of grease on the back and a little bit of grease on these top edges where it's going to ride against that spring plate. So we'll go ahead and insert our new pad and just push up against that spring plate until we can get it onto these pins. Got one. There we go, and there's the second one. And here's the second pad. Same idea, we'll get it onto the pin here. There we go. And because we retracted the pistons, we have a nice wide gap here in the middle for our new rotor. At this point, our caliper is pretty much all set other than the new wear sensors. And we're going to do those once we mount the caliper back onto the car. So next up, let's get to work on replacing this rear rotor. So we're going to start by removing all 5 of these driving pins. They're held on with a T40 Torx. The torque spec here is only 10.5 foot-pounds. So you should be able to just hold the rotor and break them loose. So these really are not very tight. With all of the driving pins off, we can go ahead and pull our rotor off. So I'm going to do that. Be very careful not to bang it into anything. So there is a parking brake that's inside of the rotor. There we go, it's coming off now. So we've got everything cleaned up. I did apply a really thin coating of grease just here on the hub face so that it doesn't freeze to the new rotor. And here is a look at our new rotor, coated to prevent rust on the vanes and on the hat. Looks absolutely fantastic compared to the old one. There is one thing to note. There are a couple of holes here in the hub face itself, and you want to make sure that lines up with this hole in the rotor so that you can do a parking brake adjustment later if you need to. So we'll go ahead and slide this on. I'm going to use this bottom hole to line up with. There we go. Looks great. And then I have our new driving pins. We'll go ahead and get all 5 of those started. And the last step is to torque these driving pins to 10.5 foot-pounds. There we go. And I'll show on the video here a screenshot from the service manual that does indicate you're supposed to replace the bolts of these driving pins when you replace them. Obviously, I bought this as a set, so the bolt is separate from the actual pin here itself. I couldn't find just the bolt itself, so I bought a little set, which was the bolt and the driving pin. This is the old one. So I went ahead and just replaced the entire set, but if you can find just the bolt, I guess you could go that way as long as your driving pins were in good shape, not gouged or nicked or anything like that. All right, so before I slide the caliper back on, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to insert these brake sensors. So the thicker part goes towards the inside, so where the brake pad material is, because that's where the wire is. And you can see there's a little clip here on the back of the brake pad itself. I'm kind of just starting it right there. Okay. And then I'll use a little screwdriver to kind of push it into that clip. There we go. And so we'll do the exact same thing on the other pad. So there's actually 2 of those brake sensors. And this wire just routes on the back of this clip here. So we'll get everything routed before I put the rotor back on. It's just a little bit easier to do out here, but pretty hard to film both of these. Okay, so with the pad sensors in, pads, everything all buttoned up, I'm ready to put the caliper back on. And you can see since we push those pistons in, everything just slides right into place, really nice. I do have brand new caliper bolts as well. These are also recommended to be replaced. And I'll put that on the screen from the service manual. So I'll get the top bolt started. There we go. And the bottom bolt as well. The final tightening torque for the caliper bolts is 48 foot-pounds. There we go. And of course we don't want to forget to plug in our wear sensor. So it slides through this bracket. You have kind of a good look at it here. The other part of the wire actually rotates into the bracket. So I've got that one installed, and then we just push this one in. There we go. Here we are up at the front of the car, and we're gonna go ahead and bleed the brakes while we're doing this job. There's no reason that you have to bleed the brakes when you do pads and rotors, but yeah, I've got the wheel off. It's just kind of a good opportunity, so I'm gonna go ahead and bleed the brakes as I go. I'm using a Motive power bleeder. I leave my power bleeder completely empty. I don't fill it with fluid. I have filled my reservoir with new .4 low viscosity fluid. I'm going to screw my power bleeder on here. And I'm just going to inflate it up to about 10 psi. And this is just going to pressurize the entire brake system so that when we go back to the rear caliper and crack open the bleeder, we should have a really nice flow of brake fluid. Okay, there we go. Let's head to the back. Okay, so here is a look at the outer bleeder. This caliper actually has an outer and an inner bleeder. We're going to start with the outer bleeder. So it is an 11 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and drop my end wrench over that bleeder screw. And then I've got just this nice little bleeding kit that I've used for years. So I'm going to pop this over the bleeding nipple. And that should catch all the brake fluid, and it's going to go right into this canister, and then I'm going to crack open this bleeder. There we go. And there we can see the brake fluid start to come out. And so we'll let that run. I'm going to do an entire canister on the outer bleeder, and then another canister on the inner bleeder. And I will fill the master cylinder between the two. So after I finish bleeding this outer with a whole canister of brake fluid, I'll refill the master cylinder, repressurize, and then do the inner bleeder. And I've actually already done the passenger side of the car. I always like to start at the right rear because it's the furthest away from the master cylinder. And so we'll do the right rear, which was already done. Now we're doing the left rear, and we'll work outer to inner. All right, so our canister is pretty much full here. I'm going to go ahead and close this bleeder off. Okay. One of the things I really like about this canister is that we can just take the top off, take it over and drain it out, and move to the next one. I've topped off the master cylinder, repressurized the system. I'm going to move to this rear bleeder. So I'll install my wrench. I'll install my bleeding canister here, and we'll crack this one open. There we go, you can see fluid start to flow. So our canister is just about full. Go ahead and close this bleeder off. There we go, so 2 canisters run through this rear left caliper. That should do the trick. The rear brakes wrapped up, everything's installed, the brakes are bled, it's time to reinstall the wheel. So we've already reapplied the paste for the center lock wheels, and that's kind of a job all in its own. We're gonna link to a video where we show you how to reapply the paste and repack the center lock nut so that you can check out just that video if you want to see what's involved in that process. But at this point, we're ready to reinstall our wheel. Okay, so torque spec for these center lock wheels is 600 Newton meters, works out to around 440 foot-pounds. I went ahead and started the car so that we have power brakes to help hold the wheel in place. Got my torque wrench dialed in, so let's go ahead and get it torqued. There we go. Now, after you torque it to 440 foot-pounds, we're going to loosen it by 90 degrees and then retorque it to 440 foot-pounds again. Okay, so we're going to loosen by 90 degrees. There we go. And then we're going to retorque to 600 Newton meters again. There we go. And now, it's nice to see that this has sprung out, which is the correct position. So we're good to go. Wheels are installed. So we finished the rear brakes. Time to move on to the front brakes. Gonna go ahead and crack open the center lock wheels. So we've got somebody holding the brakes. Let's get started. All right, so now that we have them cracked loose, I'll go ahead and remove the front wheel. So similar to the rear brakes, I'm going to start by removing the brake sensor plug. So I'll put my screwdriver in here, give it a little twist, and pull. There we go. All right, so brake sensor is unplugged. So with the wear sensors unplugged, I want to go ahead and remove the wear sensors as well. So in the rear, you saw that I didn't take too much care. I just kind of pulled the wires out since we're replacing them anyway. I'll give this a try to remove them here. Yeah, I don't think that's really worth messing with. So we'll just go ahead and pull them out. There we go. So now they won't get bound up when we try to pull the pads out. One more step before removing the caliper. I've unplugged this sensor. So again, same kind of idea that we had with the brake wear sensors. We just put a flat screwdriver in there, rotate it a little bit, and you can pull this sensor right out. And the reason I unplugged this is it's all attached to this same bracket that holds the hard lines going to the caliper. So we need to undo this bolt that attaches the bracket to the upright and also holds those hard lines in place so that we have some slack all the way back here to the rubber lines to actually move the caliper once we unbolt it. And just to note, this is a 10mm socket. Okay, there we go. So bracket is loose all the way back to our soft lines. So now when we unbolt our caliper, we should have plenty of space to swing it around. Next up, I'm going to remove the caliper mounting bolts. So we have two T55 bolts, exactly the same as the rear. Okay, so both bolts are removed. And should be able to pull the caliper off now. And there we go. So our caliper's off, and we've got some slack because we've undone the bolt that's holding that bracket. And now we just have to find a nice place to set this thing so that we can actually work on it. So I found a great place to set the caliper. It's on a couple of blocks of wood, not too much tension in the line. The problem is you guys can't see anything. So I'm going to remove the rotor next. We need to remove it anyway, and that way we can see the caliper a little bit better and we can see the install of the brake pads and everything else. So let's go ahead and get this rotor out of the way. So I will point out that the GTS with center locks uses the same rotors as the regular Carrera S. So you do have these holes that are not used. So typically there's little screws in these two holes that are used to hold the rotor in place. But because we have center locks and these driving pins, those are not utilized, and we'll see that on the new rotors as well. Okay, so carefully remove our rotor here. There we go. All right, so with the brake rotor off, we have a much better look at the caliper here on my little stand. So just like the rear, we're going to start by popping out these brake pads, and basically again you just slide them inwards off of these pins. There's a spring at the back that's going to pop them right out. There we go. There's one. You can see our wear sensor. These pads actually have a tiny bit more life than the rear pads did, so you can see that the brake material is about the same thickness as the backing plate. That's usually a good time to replace your brake pads. You can see they're just starting to contact the wear sensors. So still really good timing on the replacement. Let's see if we can see a brand. So these look like they're Jurid brand, J-U-R-I-D. Again, another OE supplier. We're going to go back with the Textar pads, but just in case you guys wanted to see that, I wanted to show that as well. There we go. And next up, we're going to push the pistons in just like we did on the rear. So we're going to use our tool here. The cap is also off the master cylinder, and the master cylinder is pretty low right now because I did not top it off after finishing the bleeding in the rear. So we'll go ahead and push all of these pistons back. So there we go. Looks like all the pistons are fully retracted. So now we're ready to remove our tool, replace our clips, and put our new brake pads in. Okay, so to remove these clips, I'm just using a little pick. What I did was I just got it under the edge of the clip here and then just pried it out. So this one's obviously already done. I'll try to show you on the other one here. Just trying to work it under the edge there. There we go. Now I've got a little bit of space. It's just about to pop out. There it goes. We've got new clips to install. I've already installed the bottom clip. I'll show you how to do it on the top clip. So basically, you just kind of get one side started and then you just push down in the middle. And there we go. Back to our caliper grease. We're going to grease our slide pins here a little bit. And then I'll grease the brake pads just like we did on the rear. Here's a look at our new brake pads. Again, Textar brake pads. I put just a little bit of grease on these ears where they're going to touch the spring clips, and just a light coating of grease across the back. So we're going to get that started onto our pin, and we'll push down. There we go. So there's one brake pad. And there's our second brake pad. And you can see, because we pushed those pistons in, plenty of space for our new rotor. So here's a look at our new rotor. And this does not go on in any specific orientation. There we go. And we'll put it on with some new driving pins as well. And we'll finish off the driving pins by torquing them to 10.5 foot-pounds. So with the rotor in place, it's time to remount our caliper. So go ahead and bring this around, get it into position. And again, we're going on with brand new caliper bolts. Okay, and we'll finish off by torquing the caliper bolts to 48 foot-pounds. All right, so here's a look at those new brake wear sensors. Basically, they just pop right into the back of the pads. It's pretty hard to film in this area while you're doing it since my hand was blocking everything. So I'll just show you what it looks like. And then obviously the wire here just routes right through this clip and then into the caliper there as well. And we'll plug it in the back. So on the back side, we'll plug in this wheel sensor and reinstall our bracket. And then we'll plug in our new wear sensor. There we go. And one last piece here is this one actually has a little clip here to hold the wear sensor onto the brake line. So we'll reinstall that. All right, so I have the master cylinder topped off and pressurized. So we're going to go ahead and crack open this bleeder. There we go. See the brake fluid flowing. Canister's full. We'll move to the inside after we top off the master cylinder and repressurize. There you go. See the fluid running. And we'll let that bleed out. Okay, close it up. Now that the brakes are done and all of the center lock components are lubed, we'll go ahead and reinstall the wheel. Okay, so we're going to tighten the wheel to 600 Newton meters. So we're going to loosen it 90 degrees. Now we're going to retorque to 600 Newton meters. Well, there you have it, a front and rear brake job on the new 911. Overall, pretty easy. Probably the most challenging parts dealing with those center lock wheels, but if you have the right tools, not too bad. If you enjoyed the content, please do subscribe.